Hi everyone, welcome again to Bake Your Way Kitchens. Today I'm going to be doing a special video, and it's a new segment that I'm going to do on my channel where I'm going to talk about specific ingredient, their uses, why we have them in recipes, and just to give you a bit of information. What I have here is butter. This is what I'm going to start. This is a very important ingredient in baking. It is the typical fat that we use in baking. The only other fat that you'll normally see would be like a vegetable oil. So sometimes I would use for certain muffin recipes. Sometimes I'll use that. And why is butter important? Is, I guess, a question that a lot of people, I think, ask and a lot of people wonder. It's important because it is what adds richness to the recipe. It helps keep your dessert together, basically. You need the fat that's why desserts taste so good, is because of the butter, which from the fat, basically. So what I have here is unsalted butter. I would always recommend for baking that you use unsalted butter. And the reason why is because with salted butter, you don't control the amount of salt in the butter. You can't. It's already in it. With unsalted butter, there's no sodium, as you can hopefully see from this label. Now, as a typical example from what I've seen, like for example, it says here 2 teaspoons, 0 milligrams of sodium in unsalted butter, obviously because it's unsalted. For a salted butter, that could be around probably 80 to 100 milligrams, and it can depend on the manufacturer. One really important thing, and when you really add it up, it adds up quickly, because this is just 2 teaspoons of butter. So if you think salted butter has anywhere between 80 to 100 milligrams of sodium in just 2 teaspoons, think of how much is in a cup, how much is in 2 cups, which is why, if you wonder why we add salt, we control the amount of salt that's in the recipe, because there's nothing worse than adding too much salt to a dessert recipe. It just too much savory is not good in a lot of baking. As you can see here, I do use I'm not a crazy organic fanatic, but I do get certain things organic, like butter. There's a place around my area. You'll have to really look around, because I find butter can really range in prices by the places that you go, but you really have to explore. I'm able to get organic butter at a place nearby, a pound of it for $7.50, which I know sounds very expensive, but for organic butter, that's actually a good price. Anyway, so what you see here is I have the butter it's just out of the fridge now, so it's quite firm. And typically you don't use butter just out of the fridge like this, cold. The only time would be when you're doing like pie crusts or things like that. In most cases you'll need salted butter, or not salted, softened butter, which you can see here. This has been out for a while, and if I just take a fork right now, or a knife, you can see it very easily spreads, and it's very soft. And pretty much for most of the baking recipes that I do, we would be using softened butter, and then we would be using firm butter for when we're making pie crusts or things that require cold butter. So we've talked about why it's important, the added richness. We've talked about the types. There's salted and unsalted. Let's talk about storage. Typically with butter, as soon as you open it, like I guess a frequent question that I've heard is, how long does butter last? Like, will it go bad? Butter does last a long time, but I will tell you this, that unsalted butter does not last as long as salted. The reason why you see salted butter all the time in stores, it's not because people just love the idea of having salt in their butter. Salt acts as a preserve, like it does, and when you have unsalted butter, you have to use it quicker than if you use salted. As soon as you put it in the fridge, I would say your butter is good for a month, maybe even a little longer. When it's out of the fridge, though, this is important. When it's out of the fridge, when you've softened it, you want to make sure you put it in a covered container. I'll just show you an example. I usually put, right now this butter is out of the plate, but I have a plate and then I put a little glass bowl like this over the top, because you don't want it too exposed to the air, because it could pick up bacteria or things like that, and you really don't want that. As soon as it's softened, you should be using it within 2 weeks, no more than that. So that's basically it for this segment of the video. So just recap, always remember to buy unsalted butter. That way you can control the content in the recipe. Make sure you store your butter in the fridge, and make sure you always have some on hand. And do your research, because if you're a baker, you want to be looking for ingredients at the best price and things like that. Like I have a go-to place for my butter, a go-to place for sugar, things like that, where not only am I getting the best value, but the best product. And you really do want to invest in good ingredients. Typically what I say, when it comes to organic, I would recommend getting organic butter. I know that it can be a bit of a pain, and especially when you're paying the extra few dollars, but I do think it is worth it for butter, but not only butter, for they call it the filthy 10, I think, for produce. Those are the only time I go to organic. You'll really notice with organic, I just find the butter tastes a lot better, and you'll notice that. Anyway, if you have any questions, do let me know, but that's pretty much the main bit I did want to say. Just one other thing regarding measurements of butter. I used to be the type that would cut it and basically, okay, 1 cup, because you can see it's got the measurements along the side here. Okay, I'm going to cut one cup of butter. When you cut it, it's never going to be the exact amount you're looking for. I'm going to put in the description below how much butter is in half a cup, 2/3 of a cup, 1 cup. So it gives you an idea. There's, for a pound of butter, a block of butter, there's 2 cups, 454 grams. 1 cup would be 227 grams. I would recommend to always scale your butter. Butter is a very important ingredient in baking, and I think that's quite important to remember. So if you have any questions about butter or anything at all, just try to leave it in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer. I mean, it is something I'm passionate about. I don't have any actual culinary school experience, but I try to pass on the knowledge that I've gained through my few years of experience doing baking to you, and hopefully help you in any recipes you're trying to make. So I will see you next time.